Hello, I'm Jody Wolf. You're watching EXPOZ on June 25, 2012 at 2:21 a.m. Birmingham, Alabama. Topic: has Ezekiel 38 and 39 arrived? Something has. It's not good. Russia, China, Iran, and Syria. Is this really war games, or are they just rattling sabers? The main question is, if they are war games, why? The G20 summit in Mexico didn't produce much in the way of a beneficial dialogue between Russia and America. In fact, the only real thing I can see, Russia has agreed to look in on the problems within Syria. The war games that is to begin in July has nothing to do with America. The true nature of the war games is not what anyone thinks. First, it is not to go into Syria and babysit. No way, because as crazy as the Syrians and Assad are, they dare not mess with the Russians. China is not here to babysit either. The rest of the Middle East will simply behave while these games are underway. China is there for another reason entirely. I'll explain that in a moment too. There will be 90,000 troops, 400 aircraft, 900 tanks. Iran is acting like the two big kids down the street has told them to come out and play. Iran's jumping for joy at this move. Iran too knows the true nature of these war games. It is not for practice. They're there for other reasons, and in a moment you'll see. The damages these games could bring is a degeneration into another Afghanistan or into another Balkans, where Syria will be split up into districts, or it could create the next arena war for Al-Qaeda. Neither is good, but all three are possibilities. So, are you ready to know the real reason, or the true reason, why China, Russia, Iran, and Syria are holding the war games? To start with, Syria will not tell the Russians no, and they are not going to be involved. I'll explain this. They're just supplying the space, and they're the host for their guests. Russia already has a large base at the Syrian port. Do you think this will have any effect on Syria and all the fighting taking place there now? You bet it will. They're like children. They'll behave around someone who will not put up with their crap. Egypt also gave China approval or permission to use the Suez Canal to move 12 naval ships into the Mediterranean to the coast of Syria, right next to Israel. And today, this just happened now, Syria has grounded their entire air force because they got wind that there was a defector. One man was going to Georgia. Well, after a little bit of investigating, they found out that over half of the Air Force would have been defectors. The entire Air Force has been grounded. And my opinion only as an outside observer. This build-up may have much more in the making than war games. Maybe it was a permanent naval, air, and ground base. And you might ask why. Well, that's almost self-explanatory. I think you know that answer. There are too many inconsistencies of what the true nature of such a large war game scenario would require. Size, who the players are. I mean, look at it. These aren't war games. It's preparing for a battle. a possible battle indicated in Ezekiel 38:39. The only thing here I cannot put my finger on is China's timing is off according to prophecy, unless it's because China has other intentions, meaning securing a base for themselves right alongside Russia. This is a very real possibility, and I do not believe China will be going home after the war games. This scenario would fit prophecy at that time, but still no one knows. I believe this is a harbinger, a warning of coming events, usually of destruction. If you look it up, you'll see what I'm talking about as warnings. You will get a general idea of where this may be going, and if I'm correct, then Isaiah 17:14 will come into play here. In part, God will rebuke them and force them to flee far off into the mountains. So here we are. This is my opinion to show Israel just how much firepower is at hand. I believe this is a threat to Israel. Now think about this. For the first time in my life, all the countries that's mentioned in the Bible in the end times to come against Israel, they're in place right now, June 2012. The warships, aircraft, tanks, and troops are but minutes away from Israel. And talk about timing. All this comes on the eve of Israel preparing to take out Iran's nuclear facilities. I'll say this, Israel works on God's timing, and if God tells Israel it's time, then regardless where the rest of the world is, Israel will have tunnel vision, and God will have their backs. God will take care of all the rest. Just maybe these countries are where they are because God put them there. Maybe they have a hook in their jaw, and you've heard me say that many times in the past. With every country that is coming up against Israel in the end times mentioned in Ezekiel 38:39 will be in place in days. No one really knows the real reason of the war games again, probably because it all came together so quickly. God does say, I'll put a hook in your jaw, O Gog of Magog, and I'll drag you to Israel. God knows what's in the hearts of all men, and God will allow them, Israel's enemies, to come up against God's people, and as a result, many will die. And they will know God of the Jews is the God of all, our Creator. Again, this has not been mentioned by anyone, nor has anyone told me that these things are going to happen. But I cannot think of another reason of this buildup of Israel's enemies. This is very ironic that this so-called war games again comes on the eve of Israel's plan to take out the facilities in Iran. The war mentioned in Ezekiel 38:39 is not the last war. This war is the Battle of Armageddon. That's the last war. So you'll see 2 more wars, and that's it. God said, stand by my people and pray always for their peace and safety, and God will bless you for doing so. One final update. Past 7 days, 102 missiles have been fired at and into Israel. God will not allow this to continue much longer. God says, my fury is thrown up in my face. Jody Wolf, EXPOZ.